The phone rings at 3:17 a.m., cutting through Alpha King Darius's dreams like silver through flesh. On the other end, a voice he hasn't heard in 3 years whispers with barely contained panic, "Your son is dying." The device slips from his suddenly numb fingers, clattering against the marble nightstand. That voice, soft, broken, achingly familiar. Mira. Darius? His wife Isabella stirs beside him, her perfectly manicured hand reaching across silk sheets. What is it? He's already moving, bare feet hitting the cold floor as he snatches the phone back up. The line has gone dead. His hands shake as he scrolls through the call log, finding the unknown number. When he calls back, it goes straight to voicemail. "Your son is dying, asterisk." The words echo in his skull as he pulls on clothes with mechanical precision. His son. The child he'd convinced himself didn't exist, the boy he'd forbidden himself to think about for 3 long years. 20 minutes later, his black SUV tears through the empty streets toward the address he'd traced through his connections. The Riverside District, a place where broken dreams go to die, where his Mira had disappeared after he destroyed both their lives with a single, devastating choice. Myra's hands are still shaking as she kneels beside the small, broken body in the alley behind Murphy's all-night diner. The fluorescent light above the back door flickers weakly, casting sickly shadows across the boy's pale face. Phoenix, asterisk her baby. Her little boy who's not so little anymore at 7 years old. His dark hair is matted with blood, and she can hear his heartbeat growing weaker with each passing second. The metallic scent of his blood mixes with something else, something that makes her wolf whimper in recognition. Her son carries his father's scent, that unmistakable signature of power and dominance that had once driven her to madness. She'd been taking out the trash when she found him, crumpled against the dumpster like discarded garbage. At first, she'd thought it was just another homeless kid who'd wandered into the wrong territory. Then she'd caught his scent, and her world had shattered all over again. The foster system had lost him. Again. She'd been trying to find him for weeks through official channels, filling out paperwork and jumping through hoops while her heart bled for the child she'd been forced to give up. And now someone had tried to kill him. "Stay with me, baby," she whispers, pressing her hands against the worst of his wounds. Her healing abilities are weak, Omega wolves aren't blessed with much power, but she pours everything she has into him. "Mama's here." The sound of engines roaring into the alley makes her look up. 3 black vehicles screech to a halt, and armed men in tactical gear pour out like something from her nightmares. But she knows who they're here for. She called him, after all. Darius emerges from the center vehicle, and even after 3 years, the sight of him still steals her breath. He's broader now, more dangerous looking, with silver threading through his black hair. Power radiates from him in waves that make every instinct in her body scream at her to submit. Their eyes meet across the dirty alley, and for a heartbeat, she's 22 again, young and naive and desperately in love with a man who was never meant to be hers. Where is he? His voice is rough, barely controlled. She shifts slightly, revealing Phoenix's still form. Darius goes rigid, his face draining of color as he takes in the sight of the child, their child, bleeding out on concrete. My God. The words are barely a whisper. What happened? I found him like this 20 minutes ago. Her voice comes out steadier than she expected. Someone beat him. Badly. Darius drops to his knees beside them, his hands hovering over Phoenix's small body as if he's afraid to touch him. Why didn't you tell me he was missing? The accusation in his tone makes her wolf bristle. Tell you? You made it clear 3 years ago that neither of us existed to you. His jaw clenches. Mira. Not now. She cuts him off, focusing back on Phoenix. He's dying, Darius. Whatever we are to each other, he's innocent in this. One of his men approaches, a tall blonde with cold eyes who smells like authority. Alpha, we need to move him. Dr. Reeves is waiting at the facility. Darius nods curtly, then looks back at her. You're coming with us. I can't leave work. I'll lose my job. Asterisk you're coming with us, asterisk, the alpha command rolls over her like a physical force, making her wolf automatically want to obey. But she's had 3 years to build walls against his power. Don't. Her voice goes ice cold. Don't you dare use alpha voice on me. Not after what you did. Something flickers in his dark eyes, pain, maybe, or regret. But it's gone too quickly to be sure. Please, he says instead, the word sounding foreign on his lips. He's my son too. The admission hangs between them like a bridge neither knows if they can cross. She looks down at Phoenix's pale face, at the child who has his father's strong jawline and her stubborn chin. Fine, she whispers. But I'm riding with him. Darius nods to his men, who immediately spring into action. They have Phoenix on a medical gurney and loaded into one of the vehicles with practiced efficiency. Mira climbs in beside him, her hand finding his small one. As the vehicle races through the night toward whatever private medical facility Darius maintains, she tries not to think about the last time she'd ridden in one of his cars. The night he'd told her about his engagement to Isabella Crane, the night her heart had broken so completely she'd thought she might die from it. His injuries, Darius says from across the cramped space, his voice carefully neutral. They're not from a random mugging. She meets his eyes in the dim light. No. Someone knew exactly where to hit him to cause maximum damage without killing him immediately. Someone who knows about werewolf physiology. The words chill her to the bone. Phoenix hadn't even shifted yet, most wolves don't until puberty. To the human world, he was just a normal 7-year-old boy. But someone had targeted him specifically, someone who knew what he was and who his father was. Who else knows about him? Darius asks. Nobody. The lie comes easily. She'd gotten good at lying over the past 3 years. I never told anyone who his father was. But even as she says it, she knows it's not entirely true. There are always people watching, always ears listening. And if someone wanted to hurt the Alpha King, what better way than through a child he'd never acknowledged? The vehicle lurches to a stop outside what looks like a private clinic nestled in the woods outside the city. More of Darius's people are waiting, including a stern-faced woman in scrubs who takes charge of Phoenix immediately. Internal bleeding, possible punctured lung, definite concussion, the doctor rattles off as Phoenix is wheeled inside. How long has he been unconscious? I don't know, Mira says, struggling to keep up. I found him maybe 40 minutes ago. They disappear through swinging doors, leaving her standing in a sterile waiting room with the most powerful werewolf in the region. The silence stretches between them like a chasm. You look tired, Darius says finally. She almost laughs. Tired doesn't begin to cover it. She works 3 jobs, the diner at night, cleaning offices in the early morning, and data entry from home during the day. Her apartment is a studio in the worst part of town, and she lives on ramen noodles and whatever free food she can get from the diner. I'm fine. Mira. Her name sounds different on his lips now, weighted with years of unspoken regret. I never meant. Stop. She holds up a hand. Just stop. We're not doing this. Not here, not now. The only thing that matters is Phoenix. But even as she says it, she can feel the pull between them, the mate bond that never fully severed despite everything he put her through. It's weaker now, scarred over like a badly healed wound, but it's still there. Darius runs a hand through his hair, a gesture she remembers from their brief time together. Someone tried to kill my son tonight. Our son. That changes everything. Does it? She turns to face him fully, 3 years of pain and anger finally bubbling to the surface. Because last I checked, you made it very clear that duty comes before everything else. Even love. Even family. His face hardens. You think this was easy for me? You think I wanted to choose between you and my people? You didn't choose me. The words come out flat, emotionless. You chose power. You chose politics. You chose a loveless marriage to a woman who can't even stand to be in the same room as you. How do you? He stops himself, jaw clenching. It doesn't matter. What's done is done. Yes, it is. She sinks into one of the uncomfortable plastic chairs. And now someone tried to murder the child you threw away to secure your throne. The accusation hangs in the air between them, sharp and cutting. Darius looks like she'd slapped him, but before he can respond, the doctor emerges from the back. He's stable, Dr. Reeves announces, pulling off bloodied gloves. But it was close. Another hour and we would have lost him. Relief floods through Mira so intensely she nearly collapses. Can I see him? He's unconscious, but yes. One at a time for now. Mira stands, but Darius catches her arm. We need to talk. About who did this. About what happens next. She looks down at his hand on her arm, at the mate mark that still shows faintly on his wrist despite his marriage to another woman. What happens next is I take my son and disappear. Again. Like hell you will. The alpha command in his voice makes her wolf whine, but she's stronger now than she was 3 years ago. Harder. Watch me. She pulls free and walks toward the back rooms, leaving the Alpha King standing alone in a sterile waiting room, powerless for perhaps the first time in his life. But as she settles beside Phoenix's hospital bed, watching her little boy breathe with the help of machines, she knows Darius is right about one thing. Someone tried to kill her child tonight. Someone who knew exactly who he was and what he meant. And that changed everything. Chapter 2. The royal compound sprawls across 200 acres of pristine wilderness, its stone walls and towering gates designed to keep the world out and secrets in. Mira presses her face against the passenger window as they drive through the main entrance, trying not to remember the last time she'd been here. The last time she believed she might actually belong in this world. Phoenix will be transferred to the medical wing this evening, Darius says from behind the wheel. His hands grip the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles have gone white. Dr. Reeves wants him under observation for at least another 48 hours. She nods but doesn't look at him. 2 days. 2 days in the place that had once felt like home and then became her personal hell. She can do this for Phoenix. She can do anything for her son. The main house looms ahead, all glass and steel and intimidating wealth. Even the guest quarters where they'd housed her are larger than her entire apartment. But wealth means nothing when your child is lying unconscious in a hospital bed, his small body marked with bruises that shouldn't exist on any 7-year-old. Mira. Darius's voice is gentle, tentative. I know this is difficult. Don't. She cuts him off, finally turning to meet his eyes. Don't pretend you understand what this is like for me. You get to play the concerned father now, but I've been living with the consequences of your choices for 3 years. His jaw tightens, but he doesn't argue. They both know she's right. The vehicle stops in front of the main entrance, where 2 guards in expensive suits wait to escort her inside. As if she might run. As if she has anywhere to go while her son fights to recover from injuries that should have killed him. Mrs. Blackwood will show you to your room, Darius says formally, all traces of the vulnerable man from the hospital gone. Here, surrounded by his pack and his power, he's every inch the Alpha King. Dinner is at 7 if you'd like to join us. Us, * his wife. His legitimate children. His perfect political family. I'll eat in my room, she says, gathering what little dignity she has left. Something flickers across his face, but he only nods. I'll have a tray sent up. The guest suite is exactly as she remembers it, elegant, expensive, and cold as a tomb. The sitting room overlooks the gardens where she'd once walked hand in hand with Darius, planning a future that was never meant to exist. The bedroom contains a king-sized bed that had once been theirs, before duty and politics and blood purity had torn them apart. She drops her single duffel bag on the designer sofa and immediately heads for the shower. She needs to wash the smell of fear and blood from her skin, needs to scrub away the memory of finding Phoenix broken and bleeding in that alley. The hot water feels like a luxury after months of cold showers in her rundown apartment. She allows herself exactly 10 minutes to fall apart, letting the tears she's been holding back since the hospital finally fall. Her baby had been alone and scared and hurt, and she hadn't been there to protect him. When she emerges, wrapped in a towel that probably costs more than her monthly rent, she finds fresh clothes laid out on the bed. Designer jeans that fit perfectly, a soft cashmere sweater, underwear that's somehow exactly her size. Someone had been paying attention to details. A soft knock interrupts her thoughts. She opens the door to find a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and graying hair pulled back in a neat bun. "Miss Kane?" "I'm Mrs. Blackwood, the head of household staff. Alpha Darius asked me to make sure you had everything you needed." "Thank you." Mira steps aside to let her in. "But I won't be staying long." Mrs. Blackwood's expression grows troubled. "If I may say, miss, you might want to reconsider. Things have changed around here since you left. Not all of it for the better." Before Mira can ask what she means, another voice cuts through the air like shattered glass. Well. If it isn't the little Omega who thought she could play queen." Mira turns to find Isabella Crane, now Isabella Blackthorne, standing in the doorway like she owns the world. Which, technically, she does. At least this part of it. Isabella hasn't changed much in 3 years. Still tall and elegant, still beautiful in that cold, untouchable way that makes men write poetry and wage wars. Her blonde hair is swept up in a perfect chignon, and her designer dress probably cost more than Mira made in 6 months. "Isabella." Mira keeps her voice level, even as her wolf bristles at the challenge in the other woman's scent. "I didn't realize you were home." "Oh, I wouldn't miss this for the world." Isabella glides into the room uninvited, her pale blue eyes taking in every detail. The mysterious Omega returns with her little bastard in tow. How delightfully dramatic. Mrs. Blackwood clears her throat uncomfortably. "Perhaps I should return later." "No need," Isabella says sweetly. "I was just welcoming our guest." The word drips with disdain, and Mira has to clench her fists to keep from responding. She's not 22 anymore, not the naive girl who'd believed love could conquer anything. She knows exactly what kind of woman Isabella is now. "I'm only here until Phoenix recovers," Mira says evenly. "Then we'll be gone." Phoenix. Isabella tastes the name like something bitter. Such a pretentious name for a foster child. "Tell me, does he know who his father is?" "That's none of your business." "Isn't it?" Isabella moves closer, her scent carrying the sharp edge of threat. "My children's inheritance is absolutely my business. Their future is my business. And anything that threatens that future becomes my very immediate business." The mask slips for just a moment, revealing the calculation underneath all that artificial sweetness. This isn't just about pride or territorial instincts. This is about money and power and the very real possibility that Phoenix's existence could complicate her children's claims to their father's legacy. "Phoenix is 7 years old," Mira says quietly. "He's not a threat to anyone. 7-year-olds grow up." Isabella's smile could cut steel. "They develop opinions. Ambitions. Claims on things that don't belong to them." "Luna." Mrs. Blackwood steps forward, her voice carefully respectful. "Perhaps this conversation would be better suited for another time." Isabella's gaze snaps to the older woman, and for a moment, the temperature in the room seems to drop several degrees. "Of course. How thoughtless of me." She turns back to Mira with that same frigid smile. "Do let me know if you need anything during your brief stay." She glides out as silently as she'd entered, leaving behind the lingering scent of expensive perfume and barely contained hostility. Mrs. Blackwood shakes her head sadly. That woman's been different since the Alpha's son was born. Possessive doesn't begin to cover it. His son? The words feel like glass in Myra's throat. The Luna gave birth to twins 18 months ago. Alexander and Sophia. Mrs. Blackwood's expression grows troubled. Beautiful children, but she guards them like a dragon guards gold. Won't let anyone near them except approved staff. Twins. Darius had twins with Isabella while Phoenix was living in foster care, bouncing from home to home with no one to love him. The unfairness of it makes her chest tight with suppressed rage. I should go check on Phoenix, she manages. Of course, dear. I'll have your dinner sent to the medical wing. The PAC's medical facility is a far cry from human hospitals. Everything is designed for werewolf physiology, reinforced beds that can handle supernatural strength, specialized medications that work with enhanced healing, monitoring equipment that can track heart rates that would alarm human doctors. Phoenix looks impossibly small in the hospital bed, machines beeping softly around him. His dark hair falls across his forehead, and even unconscious, his face carries a wariness that breaks her heart. This isn't how children are supposed to look. Guarded. Suspicious. Old before their time. He woke up briefly this afternoon, Dr. Reeves reports, checking the chart at the foot of his bed. Asked for his caseworker first, then seemed confused when I told him where he was. Of course he'd asked for his caseworker. Phoenix had learned early that adults weren't permanent fixtures in his life. Everyone left, everyone gave up on him, everyone passed him along to the next temporary home. Did he say anything else? He wanted to know if he was in trouble. Dr. Reeves' professional mask slipped slightly, revealing her own anger at the circumstances that had brought a child to this point. 7 years old, and his first concern was whether he'd done something wrong. Mira sinks into the chair beside his bed, reaching for his small hand. His fingers are calloused, she realizes. 7-year-old fingers shouldn't have calluses, shouldn't bear the marks of labor and survival. Tell me about his injuries, she says quietly. Dr. Reeves hesitates. Are you sure you want the details? I need to know. 3 broken ribs, internal bleeding from a ruptured spleen, severe concussion, and multiple contusions consistent with repeated blunt force trauma. The doctor's voice remains clinical, but her hands shake slightly as she turns pages on the chart. The pattern of injury suggests someone who knew exactly how to inflict maximum damage while keeping him conscious. This wasn't a random beating. The confirmation of what they'd all suspected settles in Myra's stomach like lead. Someone tortured him. The psychological evaluation will have to wait until he's more stable, but yes. Someone wanted him to suffer. A new voice from the doorway makes them both turn. Someone wanted to send a message. Darius fills the entrance, still wearing the same clothes from this morning but looking like he'd aged years in the past few hours. His usually immaculate appearance is rumpled, his dark hair disheveled as if he'd been running his hands through it. What kind of message? Mira asks, though she's not sure she wants to hear the answer. He steps into the room, his gaze immediately going to Phoenix's still form. The kind that says, we know about your son, and we can reach him whenever we want. You think this was targeted specifically? I know it was. He pulls out a tablet, swiping to what looks like financial records. I've been going through the PAC Treasury records for the past 3 years. Someone's been making payments, substantial ones, to various individuals and organizations. Foster agencies, social workers, even some of the families that housed Phoenix. Myra's blood runs cold. Payments for what? Silence. Cooperation. Making sure certain records stayed sealed and certain questions never got asked. His jaw tightens. Someone's been managing Phoenix's placement in the foster system, making sure he ended up in homes where he'd be manageable. You mean homes where they'd hurt him? I mean homes where desperate people were willing to take money to look the other way. He swipes to another screen, showing bank transfers that make her stomach turn. $50,000 to place him with the Hendersons, who had a history of child abuse charges that mysteriously disappeared. $75,000 to keep him with the Martins even after neighbors reported suspected neglect. The numbers blur in front of her eyes. All that money, all those payments, and her son had still suffered. Had still been beaten and starved and treated like he was worthless. But here's the interesting part, Darius continues, his voice dropping to something dangerous. The payments stopped 6 weeks ago. All of them. And 3 days later, the Henderson family died in what police called a tragic house fire. Dr. Reeves inhales sharply. The family Phoenix was placed with before his current foster home? The same family that called social services to report Phoenix as a runaway when he disappeared from their house after they locked him in a basement for 2 days without food. Darius's control finally cracks, his wolf bleeding through in his voice. They reported him missing, collected their final payment, and died in a fire that forensics couldn't quite explain. And the current family? Mira whispers. The Kowalskis. Reported missing yesterday morning. Their house was found burned to the ground last night. No bodies recovered. The room falls silent except for the steady beeping of Phoenix's monitors. Someone wasn't just targeting Phoenix, they were eliminating everyone who knew about the payments, everyone who could connect the dots back to whoever had been orchestrating his placement. Who authorized the payments from the PAC treasury? Dr. Reeves asks. Darius's expression grows grim. Someone with alpha-level clearance. The digital signatures are legitimate, but the authorization codes. He swipes to another screen. They trace back to administrative accounts that technically don't exist. A ghost in the system, Mira realizes. A very well-connected ghost with intimate knowledge of PAC finances and clearance protocols. He looks up from the tablet, his dark eyes haunted. Someone close to the inner circle. Someone who's been planning this for years. Mira forces herself to think past the rage and grief clouding her judgment. You said the attack wasn't meant to kill him. The injuries were severe but not fatal. Not for a werewolf child with accelerated healing. Someone wanted him alive but broken, wanted to demonstrate their reach without removing him from the board entirely. A warning. A threat, he corrects. They're telling me they know about Phoenix, they know he's mine, and they can hurt him whenever they choose. The question is what they want in return for leaving him alone. A soft sound from the bed makes them all freeze. Phoenix's eyelids flutter, and his breathing changes from the deep rhythm of unconsciousness to the lighter pattern of awareness. Phoenix. Mira leans forward, squeezing his hand gently. Baby, can you hear me? His eyes open slowly, unfocused and confused. They're Darius's eyes, she realizes with a pang, that same dark brown that can look warm or cold depending on his mood. Right now, they look terrified. Am I in trouble? His voice is barely a whisper, scratchy from the breathing tube they'd removed earlier. No, sweetheart. You're not in trouble. You're safe. His gaze finds her face, and something like recognition flickers there. Lady from the diner? Her heart breaks a little more. He knows her as the woman who sometimes gave him free food when he showed up hungry and hollow-eyed at Murphy's back door. He doesn't know she's his mother. Doesn't know she spent 3 years trying to find a way to reclaim him from a system designed to keep them apart. That's right. I'm Mira. His attention shifts to Darius, and his body goes rigid with fear. Even injured and medicated, his survival instincts recognize an alpha's power. It's okay, Mira says quickly. He's here to help. Adults don't help, Phoenix says flatly, his child's voice carrying a cynicism that belongs on someone decades older. Adults take money and hurt kids and lie about it. Darius makes a sound like he's been punched, and Mira can smell his guilt and rage from across the room. This is what his choice had created. This broken, suspicious child who'd learned before he could properly walk that the world was a dangerous place where love was conditional and safety was temporary. Some adults are like that, Mira agrees carefully. But not all of them. Phoenix considers this with the serious expression of someone who's had to make life or death decisions about which adults to trust and which ones to run from. The people who hurt me, he says finally. Are they coming back? The simple question hangs in the air like a blade. Mira looks at Darius, seeing her own fear reflected in his eyes. Someone had orchestrated years of abuse and manipulation, had eliminated witnesses and covered their tracks, had demonstrated their reach with surgical precision. No, Darius says, his voice rough with emotion. They're not coming back. I promise you that. Phoenix studies him with those two old eyes. Promises don't mean anything. Adults break them all the time. Not this one, Darius says quietly. This one I'll keep. Why? The question is simple, direct, devastating in its innocence. Darius looks at Mira, and she sees the moment he makes his choice. The same choice he should have made 3 years ago, the choice that might finally give their son the father he deserves. Because you're my son, he says simply. And I should have been protecting you from the beginning. Phoenix blinks slowly, processing this information with the careful attention of a child who's learned that knowledge is survival. Does that mean I don't have to go back to foster care? Never, Mira promises, squeezing his hand. You're never going back there. Something eases in Phoenix's expression, the first crack in the armor he's built around himself. Can I have some juice? The purple kind? It's such a normal request, such an ordinary thing for a 7-year-old to want, that Mira has to blink back tears. Of course, baby. Whatever you want. As Dr. Reeves goes to get the juice, and Phoenix drifts back towards sleep, Darius moves closer to the bed. His hand hovers over their son's dark hair, not quite touching. Someone's been playing a long game, he says quietly. Using Phoenix as a pawn to get to me. The question is what they want badly enough to orchestrate 3 years of systematic abuse. Mira watches her son's peaceful face, finally relaxed in true sleep rather than unconsciousness. Whatever it is, they've made a mistake. What do you mean? She looks up at him, and he sees something in her expression that makes his wolf sit up and take notice. 3 years of struggling to survive, 3 years of fighting a system designed to keep her from her child, 3 years of watching from a distance as Phoenix suffered, it's forged her into something harder, more dangerous than the sweet Omega he'd once known. They wanted to send you a message about your son, she says quietly. But they forgot something important. What? Her smile is sharp enough to cut glass. He's my son too. And I've spent 3 years learning exactly how dirty this world really is. Through the window, storm clouds gather over the compound, and somewhere in the distance, thunder rolls across the mountains like a warning. The game has changed, the players revealed, and the stakes just got higher than anyone anticipated. But in the medical wing, a little boy sleeps safely for the first time in years, watched over by parents who are finally ready to fight for him. And sometimes, that's where revolutions begin. Chapter 3. The training yard echoes with the sound of flesh meeting flesh, heavy breathing, and the occasional grunt of pain. Phoenix has been here every morning for the past week, dragging himself out of the medical wing against Dr. Reeves' protests and his mother's worried looks. He's small for 7, made smaller by years of inadequate nutrition and neglect, but he moves with the focused intensity of someone who understands that weakness equals death. The pack warriors humor him at first, thinking he's just a traumatized kid looking for distraction. They stop laughing when he lands his first real hit. Again, he says, wiping blood from his split lip with the back of his hand. His opponent, a warrior named Derek who's twice his size and 3 times his age, hesitates. Kid, maybe we should take a break. Again. Phoenix's voice carries an edge that makes Derek's wolf whimper in recognition. This isn't play. This isn't therapy. This is survival training from someone who's already learned the lesson that hesitation kills. Mira watches from the sidelines, her heart breaking a little more with each brutal exchange. Her baby shouldn't know how to take a hit and keep moving. Shouldn't know that the secret to staying alive is making yourself too dangerous to ignore and too costly to attack. He's good, says a voice beside her. She turns to find Commander James Mitchell, head of the pack's elite guard, watching Phoenix with professional interest. Raw, but he's got instincts you can't teach. He's 7 years old. Age is just a number when you've been surviving on the streets. Mitchell's scarred face remains expressionless. I've trained grown wolves who couldn't read a situation half as well as he can. As if to prove his point, Phoenix suddenly drops low and sweeps Derek's legs, sending the much larger wolf crashing to the ground. Before Derek can recover, Phoenix has rolled away and come up in a defensive crouch, eyes already scanning for the next threat. Street fighting, Mitchell observes. No rules, no honor, just whatever keeps you alive another day. Someone taught him well. No one taught him, Mira says quietly. He learned because he had to. The truth sits between them like a weight. Phoenix hadn't learned to fight from some wise mentor or caring instructor. He'd learned because adults had hurt him, because older kids in foster care had seen him as easy prey, because the world had made it clear that no one was coming to save him. Mom? Phoenix appears at her elbow, sweaty and breathing hard but more alert than she's seen him since the attack. Can I train with the weapons instructor after lunch? Sweetheart, you just got out of the hospital. I'm fine. The words come out sharp, automatic. Phoenix has been saying he's fine for so long it's become his default response to any expression of concern. I need to learn this stuff. Why? But even as she asks, Mira knows the answer. Phoenix's dark eyes, so much like his father's, meet hers with devastating clarity. Because they're coming back. And next time, I won't be helpless. Isabella Blackthorne sits in her private study, surrounded by the trappings of wealth and power that she's spent the last 3 years carefully accumulating. The room is decorated in shades of cream and gold, everything perfectly coordinated and coldly beautiful. Like Isabella herself. She's been making phone calls all morning, reaching out to contacts throughout the supernatural community, pulling in favors and gathering information. The return of Mira and the revelation of Phoenix's existence has upset the careful balance she's worked so hard to maintain. Her twins, Alexander and Sophia, are upstairs in the nursery, protected by layers of security and magical wards that cost more than most people make in a lifetime. They're beautiful children, blessed with their father's strength and their mother's cunning, destined to inherit one of the most powerful packs in North America. Or they were, until a broken little boy with street-smart eyes showed up to complicate everything. The phone rings, interrupting her brooding. The caller ID shows a number she recognizes, one of her most useful contacts in the pack's financial department. Tell me you have good news, Sarah. I have information, comes the careful reply. Whether it's good news depends on your perspective. Isabella's grip tightens on the phone. Go on. I've been tracking those payments you asked about, the ones to the foster families. The authorization trail leads back to a shadow account that's been active for almost 4 years. 4 years? Isabella's mind races. Phoenix is 7, which means someone had been planning this since before he was even born. Who controls the account? That's where it gets interesting. The digital signatures match alpha-level clearance, but they're not from your husband. Then who? A pause that stretches too long for comfort. Marcus Blackthorne. The name hits Isabella like a physical blow. Marcus, Darius's younger brother and political rival. Marcus, who'd been conspicuously absent from pack meetings lately. Marcus, who'd never quite gotten over losing the leadership challenge that made Darius Alpha King. You're certain? As certain as I can be without direct access to his personal accounts. But the pattern matches his spending habits, and the timing. Sarah's voice drops to a whisper. Isabella, the account became active 3 days after Mira Kane left the compound. Isabella closes her eyes, pieces clicking together with horrible clarity. Marcus hadn't just been monitoring the situation with Phoenix, he'd been orchestrating it. Using the boy as a weapon against his brother, keeping him alive but suffering as a constant reminder of Darius's abandoned responsibilities. There's more, Sarah continues. Large cash withdrawals started 2 weeks ago. The kind of amounts you'd need to hire serious muscle. How serious? The kind that don't ask questions and don't leave witnesses. Isabella ends the call and sits in silence, staring out the window at the compound's manicured grounds. Her perfect world is crumbling around her, threatened by forces she'd underestimated and enemies she'd failed to see coming. But Isabella didn't become Luna by backing down from fights. She became Luna by winning them, whatever the cost. She picks up her phone and dials a different number, one she's never used but has kept memorized for years. Insurance, her father had called it. Every successful woman needs insurance. Marcus? Her voice is honey over steel. I think it's time we talked. The pack meeting is held in the Great Hall, a massive stone chamber that can accommodate the compound's 300 residents. It's supposed to be a routine monthly gathering, reports from various department heads, financial updates, minor territorial disputes. Mira sits in the back with Phoenix, both of them still outsiders despite their connection to the Alpha King. She can feel the curious stares, hear the whispered conversations that stop when people notice her listening. Phoenix fidgets beside her, his newly acquired paranoia making him scan the room constantly for threats. He's wearing clean clothes that actually fit, his injuries have healed to faint bruises, and he looks more like a normal 7-year-old than he has since she found him bleeding in that alley. But his eyes remain old, watchful, ready. "Relax," she whispers. "We're safe here." He gives her a look that says he doesn't believe in safety, not anymore. That he's learned the hard way that being surrounded by people doesn't mean being protected by them. Darius stands at the front of the hall, commanding attention without effort. He's in his element here, confident and authoritative, every inch the Alpha King who's led this pack to prosperity. But Mira can see the tension in his shoulders, the way his gaze keeps drifting to Phoenix as if he's still afraid the boy might disappear. "Before we begin tonight's business," Darius says, his voice carrying easily through the hall, "I want to address recent events that have affected our pack's security." A ripple of attention moves through the crowd. Everyone knows about the attack on Phoenix, though the details have been kept carefully vague. "Some of you may be aware that my son was targeted by unknown individuals last week," Darius continues, and Mira hears Phoenix's sharp intake of breath at the public acknowledgement. "I want to assure you that we are taking this threat seriously and implementing additional security measures for all pack members." "Your son." The voice comes from the middle of the crowd, cutting through the formal atmosphere like a blade. "Which son would that be, brother?" Marcus Blackthorne steps forward, and the temperature in the room seems to drop several degrees. He's younger than Darius by 2 years, but carries himself with the same natural authority. Where Darius is all controlled power, Marcus radiates barely leashed violence. "The son you abandoned to foster care?" Marcus continues, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. "The one you pretended didn't exist while his mother worked 3 jobs just to survive?" The hall erupts in whispers and shocked murmurs. Most of the pack had no idea about Phoenix's parentage, no idea that their Alpha King had a secret child living in poverty. Darius's jaw tightens, but his voice remains level. "This is neither the time nor the place for this discussion, Marcus. Isn't it?" Marcus spreads his arms, addressing the crowd rather than his brother. "When is the right time to discuss how our leader abandoned his own blood? How he chose political convenience over family?" Phoenix shrinks lower in his seat, overwhelmed by the attention and the anger crackling through the air. Mira puts a protective arm around him, her own wolf responding to the threat she can smell building in the room. "You want to talk about family?" Darius steps down from the podium, moving closer to his brother. "Let's talk about family, Marcus. Let's talk about the payments from the pack treasury. The unauthorized transfers to foster agencies. The systematic abuse of an innocent child." Marcus's expression doesn't change, but something cold flickers in his eyes. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "Don't you?" Darius pulls out his tablet, swiping to financial records. "For years of payments, Marcus. For years of making sure Phoenix ended up in homes where he'd suffer. Where he'd learn to survive on scraps and live in fear." The accusation hangs in the air like smoke. Marcus stands perfectly still, and Mira realizes with growing dread that he's not surprised by the revelation. He's not even bothered by it. "You think I orchestrated years of child abuse to get back at you?" Marcus asks, and there's something almost amused in his voice. "You think this is about some petty sibling rivalry? Then what is it about?" Marcus smiles, and it's the expression of a predator who's finally tired of playing with his prey. "Power, brother. It's always been about power." The lights go out. Emergency lighting kicks in a second later, casting everything in hellish red shadows. But in that moment of absolute darkness, Mira hears what her human-raised senses almost miss: the subtle sound of windows breaking, the whisper of ropes against stone, the metallic click of weapons being readied. "Phoenix, get down," she shouts, throwing herself over her son just as the first shots ring out. The great hall explodes into chaos. Pack members scream and scatter, some shifting to wolf form, others diving for cover behind overturned tables. The emergency exits slam shut with the finality of steel bars, trapping everyone inside. Marcus's mercenaries rappel through the broken windows like something from a nightmare, dressed in black tactical gear and moving with military precision. They're human, Mira realizes, hired guns who don't care about pack politics or supernatural law. They're here to kill, pure and simple. A bullet winds past her head, and she rolls sideways, keeping Phoenix underneath her. Around them, pack members are fighting back, but they're caught off guard, trapped in an enclosed space against opponents who'd clearly planned this assault down to the last detail. The service entrance, Phoenix whispers urgently. Behind the kitchen. I saw it when we came in. Of course he had. Her son had spent the entire meeting mapping escape routes instead of listening to speeches. Street smart, Mitchell had called it. The kind of paranoia that keeps you alive. Can you make it? Phoenix nods, his small face set with determination. Stay low, move fast, don't look back. I know how to do this. God help her, he did know. Her 7-year-old son was an expert at running from violence because he'd been doing it his whole life. They begin crawling toward the back of the hall, staying beneath the line of gunfire. Around them, the battle rages with vicious intensity. She sees Derek, the warrior Phoenix had been sparring with, take a bullet to the shoulder and keep fighting. Sees Commander Mitchell coordinating a counterattack with brutal efficiency. Sees Darius locked in hand-to-hand combat with 3 mercenaries at once, his expensive suit torn and bloody, his face a mask of controlled fury. A shadow falls across their path, and Mira looks up to find one of the mercenaries pointing a rifle directly at Phoenix's head. Found them, he says into his radio. The package and the mother, just like. Phoenix moves like lightning, rolling sideways and kicking the man's ankle with all the force his small body can muster. It's not enough to do real damage, but it's enough to throw off his aim. The shot goes wide, and Mira is already moving, her wolf strength and maternal fury combining into something deadly. She hits the mercenary low and hard, driving him backward into a stone pillar. His head connects with granite with a wet crunch, and he drops like a stone. Mom? Phoenix's voice is small, shocked. He's never seen her fight before, never seen her be anything but the gentle waitress who brought him free food and worried looks. I'm okay, baby. She's breathing hard, her hands shaking with adrenaline. We need to keep moving. They reach the service entrance just as more mercenaries flood through the main doors. Phoenix works the lock with fingers that are steady despite everything, and Mira realizes he's done this before, picked locks, found hidden ways out, escaped from situations that should have killed him. The door swings open, revealing a narrow hallway that leads to the kitchen and, beyond that, the servants' quarters and back exits. This way, Phoenix whispers, taking her hand and leading her through corridors he shouldn't know but somehow does. Her son has spent a week at the compound and already mapped every escape route, every hidden passage, every way out of a building that was supposed to be safe. Behind them, the sounds of battle continue, gunfire and screams and the wet sounds of violence that will haunt her dreams. But ahead lies darkness and the promise of survival, and right now that's all that matters. They emerge into the night air through a service exit near the laundry building. The compound's grounds are chaos, more mercenaries moving through the shadows, security lights broken, the careful order of Darius's domain turned into a war zone. The garage, Phoenix says, pointing toward a building she can barely see in the darkness. We can get a car. No. The voice comes from their right, smooth and cold and utterly without mercy. I don't think you'll be going anywhere. Isabella steps out of the shadows, no longer the perfectly groomed Luna but something harder, more dangerous. She's changed from her designer dress into tactical gear, and she's holding a gun with the confidence of someone who knows how to use it. Isabella. Mira tries to keep her voice steady. What are you doing? Cleaning house. Isabella's smile is arctic. Did you really think I'd let some Omega's bastard threaten my children's future? Phoenix moves slightly behind Mira, but his eyes never leave Isabella's face. Even at 7, he recognizes a predator when he sees one. Marcus made you a deal, Mira realizes. Help him take power, and he eliminates us. Marcus is an idiot who thinks with his emotions instead of his head. But he's a useful idiot, and his mercenaries are very thorough. Isabella raises the gun, aiming directly at Phoenix. Nothing personal, child. Just business. Time seems to slow as Isabella's finger tightens on the trigger. Mira starts to move, knowing she's too far away, knowing she'll never reach him in time. The shot echoes across the compound, sharp and final. But it's Isabella who staggers backward, clutching her shoulder as blood seeps between her fingers. Behind her, Darius emerges from the shadows, smoking gun in his hand, his face carved from stone. Brother. Marcus's voice carries across the courtyard as he approaches with a squad of his mercenaries. How good of you to join us. Darius doesn't lower his weapon, doesn't take his eyes off Isabella. Call off your dogs, Marcus. I don't think so. Marcus signals to his men, who immediately train their weapons on Darius. You see, this has gone exactly according to plan. You'll be killed defending your bastard son, tragic, really, and I'll be forced to assume leadership to restore order. And then what? You think the pack will follow you after this? Marcus shrugs. The pack will follow strength. They always do. From her position on the ground, Isabella laughs, a bitter, pained sound. Fool. You think this ends with Darius dead? You think the other packs won't come for you? You think the council will recognize a leadership gained through massacre? The council recognizes results, Marcus replies coldly. And when they see the prosperity I bring, they'll see a tyrant who murdered children. Darius's voice carries the authority of someone who's led through respect rather than fear. They'll hunt you down like the rabid dog you are. Phoenix tugs on Myra's sleeve, drawing her attention downward. In the dim light, she sees him pointing towards something in the shadows near the garage, movement, shapes that shouldn't be there. Pack members. Survivors from the Great Hall who'd escaped through other routes, who'd circled around to outflank the mercenaries. Mitchell is there, and Derek despite his wounded shoulder, and a dozen others who'd rather die fighting than live under Marcus's rule. You know what your problem is, Marcus? Darius continues, apparently oblivious to the pack members moving through the shadows. You never understood that real power isn't taken. It's earned. Marcus sneers. Philosophy won't save you now, brother. No, Darius agrees. But loyalty will. The attack comes from three sides at once. Mitchell and his warriors hit the mercenaries from behind while Darius dove left, drawing their fire. The courtyard erupts into close-quarters combat, all gunfire and hand-to-hand brutality with no room for strategy or finesse. Mira grabs Phoenix and rolls behind the nearest cover, a concrete planter that barely shields them from the crossfire. Around them, pack members fight with the desperate fury of people defending their home, while Marcus's mercenaries discover that hunting werewolves in the dark is very different from whatever they'd been paid for. Stay down, Mira whispers, but Phoenix is already moving, low and fast like he'd learned in a dozen different foster homes where hiding meant survival. He reaches Isabella before Mira can stop him, the wounded Luna too focused on the battle to notice a small shadow approaching her blind side. Phoenix's hand closes over her dropped gun just as Isabella turns toward him. Give me that, Isabella snarls, lunging for the weapon. Phoenix doesn't hesitate. He pulls the trigger. The shot takes Isabella's center mass, and she drops without a sound. Phoenix stands over her body, still holding the gun, his small face expressionless in the muzzle flash's afterglow. Phoenix. Mira reaches him just as the battle begins to wind down. Marcus's mercenaries are dead or fleeing, the pack's counterattack having turned the tide through superior knowledge of the terrain and sheer desperation. Marcus himself lies on the ground near the garage, Mitchell's boot on his chest and a gun to his head. He's still alive, but barely, blood seeping from multiple wounds. Darius approaches slowly, limping from a bullet graze on his leg but otherwise intact. His eyes go immediately to Phoenix, who still holds Isabella's gun with steady hands. Son. Darius's voice is gentle, questioning. Phoenix looks up at him with those two old eyes. She was going to kill us. All of us. I know. Darius kneels beside him, carefully taking the gun from Phoenix's small hands. You did what you had to do. Does that make me bad? The question breaks something in Darius's chest. Here's his 7-year-old son, who's just killed someone in self-defense, worried that protecting his family makes him a monster. No, Darius says firmly. That makes you a survivor. That makes you strong. Phoenix nods solemnly, accepting this judgment. Around them, the compound slowly returns to some semblance of order as pack members tend to the wounded and secure the area. What happens now? Mira asks, looking at the bodies scattered across what had been peaceful ground just an hour ago. Darius stands slowly, his arm going around both her and Phoenix in a gesture that feels like a promise. Now we rebuild. We heal. We make sure nothing like this ever happens again. And Marcus? They all turn to look at Darius's brother, who's being helped to his feet by Mitchell's warriors. He's broken, defeated, but still alive. Marcus faces pack justice, Darius says quietly. The council will decide his fate. But as they walk back toward the main house, Phoenix between them like the bridge they'd never known they needed, Mira understands that some choices can't be undone. Some prices, once paid, change everything. The compound will be rebuilt. The dead will be buried. The survivors will heal. But Phoenix will always carry the memory of this night, the knowledge that sometimes staying alive means being willing to kill. And maybe, in a world as brutal as theirs, that's the most valuable lesson a father can pass to his son. The blood price has been paid, in full. Chapter 4. The pack's medical facility smells like antiseptic and blood, a combination that makes Phoenix's stomach turn even though he spent half his life in hospital emergency rooms. The wounded from the attack fill every bed, and Dr. Reeves moves between them with grim efficiency, triaging injuries that range from superficial to life-threatening. Phoenix sits on an examination table, letting the doctor check him over for the 3rd time since the attack. His hands are still steady despite everything, too steady for a 7-year-old who just killed someone. But then again, normal 7-year-olds don't learn to survive by reading the room for threats and escape routes. Physically, he's fine, Dr. Reeves tells Mira quietly, though Phoenix can hear every word. Adults always assume kids aren't listening when they whisper. But mentally, she shakes her head. He's going to need help processing what happened tonight. I'm right here, Phoenix says flatly. And I'm fine. It's become his automatic response to everything. I'm fine, I'm okay, don't worry about me. The words that keep adults from asking too many questions, from digging too deep into places that hurt. Mira sits down beside him, her face drawn with exhaustion and something else, guilt, maybe, or fear. Phoenix, you don't have to be fine. What happened tonight was necessary. The word comes out harder than he intends. She was going to kill us. So I killed her first. That's how it works. The simplicity of his logic breaks something in Myra's expression. Her son shouldn't understand the mathematics of violence this clearly, shouldn't be able to reduce murder to basic arithmetic. That's not how it should work, she whispers. Phoenix looks at her with those two old eyes. Should doesn't matter. Only what is matters. Before Mira can respond, Darius appears in the doorway. He's changed out of his blood-stained clothes into clean jeans and a sweater, but he can't wash away the haunted look in his eyes. Commander Mitchell is behind him, along with 2 other pack members Phoenix doesn't recognize. We need to talk, Darius says, his voice carrying the weight of bad news. They move to a private room down the hall, away from the injured and the medical staff. Phoenix notices that Mitchell posts guards outside, not to keep people out, but to keep their conversation from being overheard. Marcus is gone, Darius begins without preamble. He escaped during the cleanup, along with at least 3 of his mercenaries. How? Myra's voice is sharp with disbelief. He was bleeding out. He was playing dead, Mitchell corrects grimly. Bastard's tougher than he looked. By the time we realized he was gone, he'd already made it to the perimeter. Phoenix isn't surprised. Adults lie all the time, especially when their lives depend on it. Marcus had simply been better at lying than most. There's more, Darius continues, and something in his tone makes Phoenix's survival instincts kick into high gear. We found Isabella's private files when we searched her study. Financial records, communication logs, surveillance reports. He trails off, looking older than Phoenix has ever seen him. What kind of surveillance reports? Mira asks, though her voice suggests she already knows the answer will be bad. Mitchell pulls out a tablet, swiping to a document that makes Darius wince. Reports on pack security, daily routines, personal information about key members. Isabella wasn't just Marcus's ally in this attack, she'd been feeding him intelligence for years. The words hit the room like physical blows. Phoenix watches his father's face crumble as the implications sink in. The marriage, Darius says quietly. She approached me right after you left, Mira. Said she understood the political pressures I was under, offered a strategic alliance that would strengthen both our families. It wasn't a coincidence, Mira realizes. She targeted you specifically. Marcus orchestrated the whole thing. Used Isabella to get close to me, to learn everything about pack operations, to position herself perfectly to strike when the time was right. Darius runs his hands through his hair. Christ, she had access to everything. Financial accounts, security protocols, communication systems. Phoenix speaks up from his corner, his voice cutting through their shocked silence. What did she take? The adults turn to look at him, and he sees the moment they remember he's there, not just a traumatized kid, but someone who understands that information is currency and betrayal has a price. What do you mean? Mitchell asks. Adults don't spy for years just to hurt people's feelings, Phoenix says with the matter-of-fact tone of someone who's learned these lessons the hard way. They spy to get something. Money, power, secrets they can sell. So what did she take? Darius and Mitchell exchange glances that confirm Phoenix's suspicions. Financial records, Mitchell admits. Account numbers, transaction histories, evidence of how we launder money through human businesses. PAC member identities, Darius adds. Real names, addresses, places of employment. Information that could expose hundreds of werewolves to human authorities. And communications, Mitchell finishes. Recorded conversations with other PAC leaders, territorial agreements, evidence of supernatural justice that humans would call murder. Phoenix processes this information with the cold calculation of someone who's learned that knowledge equals survival. So if the police get that stuff, everyone here goes to jail or worse. Yes. And Marcus has it now. We have to assume he does. Phoenix nods, accepting this reality the way he's learned to accept all the other brutal facts of his existence. Adults betray each other. Families aren't safe. Home is wherever you can hide until the next disaster hits. So what do we do? Mira asks. We run, Phoenix says immediately. Fast and far and never look back. It's what you do when someone has enough information to destroy you. The adults stare at him, and Phoenix realizes he said something that reveals too much about his own experiences. Is that what you did? Darius asks quietly. Run when someone had information that could hurt you? Phoenix shrugs, but there's pain behind the gesture. Foster families talk. Social workers write reports. Everyone keeps files on kids like me. Sometimes those files say things that make people not want you around anymore. The simple statement carries the weight of years of rejection and abandonment. Phoenix has been running from damaging information his entire life. Medical records that made him seem broken, behavioral reports that labeled him difficult, psychological evaluations that scared potential adoptive families away. We're not running, Darius says firmly. This is our home. Our pack. We don't abandon our people because of threats. Even if staying gets everyone killed? The question hangs in the air like smoke. Phoenix has asked it with the brutal honesty of someone who's never had the luxury of noble gestures or heroic stands. Before anyone can answer, an alarm starts blaring throughout the compound. 3 short bursts followed by a long wail. Phoenix recognizes it immediately as a perimeter breach alert, though he shouldn't know pack security codes after only a week of residence. Mitchell is already moving, speaking into his radio with clipped efficiency. All units report. What's the status on that breach? The response crackles back with barely contained urgency. Commander, you need to see this. Main gate. Marcus is back. They find Marcus standing just inside the main gate, hands raised in apparent surrender, flanked by the same 3 mercenaries who'd escaped with him hours earlier. But something's different now. He's cleaned up, changed clothes, and carries himself with the confidence of someone holding all the cards. Brother. Marcus calls out as Darius approaches with a full security detail. I've come to negotiate. You're in no position to negotiate anything, Darius replies, but he signals his guards to hold position rather than attack. Marcus smiles, the expression of a predator who's finally cornered his prey. I think you'll find I'm in an excellent position. You see, I have something you want. He gestures, and one of his mercenaries steps forward carrying a metal briefcase. The kind of case that suggests important documents are inside. Isabella was very thorough in her intelligence gathering, Marcus continues conversationally. Bank records, personnel files, surveillance footage, recorded conversations, everything a federal prosecutor would need to bring down your entire organization. Phoenix edges closer to his parents, his street-smart instinct screaming that this situation is about to get worse. Marcus isn't here to surrender or make peace. He's here to twist the knife. What do you want? Darius asks, though his tone suggests he already knows the answer. Simple. You abdicate as Alpha King and publicly acknowledge me as your successor. Dissolve your marriage to Isabella. Oh wait, she's dead, isn't she? How convenient. Marcus's smile turns predatory. And you exile yourself and your little Omega whore and bastard son forever. In exchange, these files stay buried. The words hit like physical blows. Phoenix feels his mother tense beside him, smells the rage and humiliation rolling off both his parents in waves. And if I refuse? Marcus opens the briefcase, revealing neat stacks of documents and what appear to be data drives. Then by tomorrow morning, every major human law enforcement agency in the country will have copies of these files. The FBI will know about werewolves. The IRS will know about your money laundering operations. Local police will know about the territorial disputes that left human bodies in their unsolved cases files. He closes the case with a sharp click. Your pack will be scattered to the winds, your people hunted like animals, and everyone you've ever cared about will spend the rest of their lives in federal prison or shallow graves. Phoenix understands the game now. Marcus isn't just trying to take power, he's holding a gun to the head of every person in the compound. Hundreds of lives balanced against Darius's pride and position. You're bluffing, Mitchell says, but his voice lacks conviction. Am I? Marcus pulls out his phone, showing them a screen with multiple contact numbers. FBI Paranormal Crimes Division. Homeland Security Supernatural Threats Assessment. DEA Financial Crimes Unit. I can make all of these calls with a single touch. Those divisions don't exist, Darius says, but Phoenix can hear the uncertainty in his voice. They do now. The human government has been preparing for supernatural exposure for years, they just needed proof we exist. Thanks to Isabella's thorough documentation, I can give them everything they need to justify a full-scale war against our kind. The threat settles over them like a heavy blanket. This isn't about pack politics anymore, this is about the survival of their entire species. You'd expose us all just to get power? Mira asks, and there's genuine bewilderment in her voice. You'd condemn every werewolf in the country to death or imprisonment? Marcus shrugs. Power requires sacrifice. Sometimes you have to break a few eggs to make an omelet. Phoenix has heard that expression before, from foster parents who justified abuse as discipline, from social workers who explained why separating families was for the greater good. It's what adults say when they want to hurt people but still sleep at night. There's a third option, Phoenix says quietly. Everyone turns to look at him, and he realizes he's spoken out loud. But now that he has their attention, he might as well finish the thought. You kill him, Phoenix says matter-of-factly. Kill him and his guys, destroy the files, and pretend this never happened. The adults stare at him with varying degrees of horror and shock. But Marcus just laughs. Smart kid. Unfortunately, I thought of that already. He taps his phone again. Dead man's switch. If I don't check in every 12 hours, the files get automatically uploaded to a dozen different agencies simultaneously. Of course he did. Phoenix should have expected that. It's exactly the kind of insurance policy he'd set up if he were in Marcus's position. So we're back to my original offer, Marcus continues. You abdicate, go into exile, and everyone else gets to live their lives in peace. Or you refuse, and we all burn together. Darius looks around at the pack members gathered in the courtyard, at the people who've trusted him with their lives and safety. Phoenix can see the weight of leadership crushing down on his father's shoulders, the impossible choice between personal happiness and collective survival. I need time to consider. No. The word cuts through Darius's attempt at negotiation. You have 30 seconds to decide, brother. After that, I start making phone calls. Phoenix watches his father's face as the seconds tick by, sees the moment when duty and love collide in a battle that can only have one winner. Darius has spent his entire adult life putting the pack's needs before his own desires. It's what makes him a good leader and a terrible father. 20 seconds, Marcus announces. Mira reaches for Darius's hand, and Phoenix sees something pass between his parents, understanding, maybe, or forgiveness. They found their way back to each other just in time to lose everything again. 10 seconds. Phoenix makes his decision. He slips away from his parents' sides, moving with the silent grace he'd learned in houses where making noise meant getting hurt. The adults are all focused on Marcus and his ultimatum, not watching a small boy who knows how to become invisible when he needs to. He reaches Marcus's position just as the countdown hits 0. Time's up, Marcus says, raising his phone. I hope you're ready to watch your world burn. Phoenix drives his shoulder into Marcus's knee with all the force his small body can muster. It's not enough to do serious damage, but it's enough to throw Marcus off balance, enough to make him stumble and drop the phone. The device skitters across the asphalt, coming to rest just out of Marcus's reach. But that's not Phoenix's real objective. While everyone's attention is on the fallen phone, Phoenix's hands work with the practiced efficiency of a kid who's learned to steal food to survive. The briefcase is in his grip before Marcus realizes what's happening. Phoenix. Mira screams, but he's already moving, running toward the one place on the compound he knows better than anyone else, the obstacle course where he spent the last week learning to fight. Gunshots ring out behind him, but Phoenix is small and fast and knows how to use cover. The mercenaries are good, but they're not used to hunting targets who understand that sometimes the best defense is making yourself impossible to catch. He reaches the training area just as the first pursuer rounds the corner. Phoenix dives behind a concrete barrier, clutching the briefcase against his chest like armor. Kid! One of the mercenaries calls out. You're just making this harder on everyone. Give us the case and we'll let you live. Phoenix doesn't bother responding. Adults lie, especially when they want something from you. Instead, he evaluates his options with the cold calculation of someone who's learned that survival is about making the best choice from a list of bad ones. The briefcase is locked, but Phoenix has gotten good at opening things that aren't supposed to be opened. The locks are electronic, probably biometric, definitely beyond his ability to crack under pressure. But he doesn't need to open it. He just needs to destroy it. The training area has several pieces of equipment designed to test werewolf strength and endurance, including a hydraulic press that can exert enough force to crush steel. Phoenix breaks cover and runs for the machine, ignoring the bullets that spark off concrete around him. He reaches the hydraulic press just as footsteps pound across the training ground behind him. Stop! Marcus's voice carries across the space, raw with desperation. Those files are the only thing keeping you alive. Phoenix looks back at him, at the man who'd orchestrated years of abuse and torture, who destroyed his family for something as simple as power and jealousy. I know, Phoenix says quietly. And then he places the briefcase under the hydraulic press and hits the activation button. The machine cycles through its safety checks with mechanical precision while Marcus screams threats and promises and finally, desperately, the truth. I can give you everything. Marcus shouts, rushing forward as his mercenaries try to reach the machine in time to stop it. Money, power, a real family. I can make your father acknowledge you, make him choose you over his pack. The hydraulic press engages with a sound like thunder. Metal screams as it folds under pressure that could crush a car engine. Documents shred into confetti. Electronic drives snap like twigs. Years of carefully gathered intelligence become powder and scrap in the space of 10 seconds. You stupid little bastard. Marcus hits Phoenix from behind, sending him sprawling across the concrete. Do you have any idea what you've just done? Phoenix rolls over, looking up at the man who'd made his life hell from the moment he was born. Yeah. I just saved everyone. Marcus raises his hand to strike, but Phoenix has dealt with angry adults before. He rolls sideways, kicking out with both feet, catching Marcus in the stomach and doubling him over. By the time Marcus recovers, Darius and the pack guards have reached the training area. The fight goes out of Marcus as he finds himself surrounded by people who have every reason to want him dead. It's over, Darius says quietly. The files are destroyed. Your leverage is gone. Marcus looks at the remains of the briefcase, at years of planning and preparation reduced to twisted metal and paper scraps. You think this changes anything? You think destroying one copy ends this? What do you mean? Mitchell demands. Marcus laughs, but there's no humor in it now, just the bitter sound of someone who's lost everything and wants to take as many people down with him as possible. Isabella wasn't the only spy. Wasn't the only one gathering information. You think 3 years of marriage gave her access to everything? He wipes blood from his mouth, his smile vicious with secret knowledge. There are others. Sleeper agents in a dozen different packs. Humans who've been watching and waiting and building cases for years. The words hit like hammer blows. Even with Isabella dead and Marcus defeated, the threat remains. Somewhere out there, other enemies are watching and planning and gathering evidence that could destroy everything they've tried to protect. Where are they? Darius demands. Who are they working for? Find out yourself, Marcus spits. I'm done playing games. Phoenix watches the exchange with growing understanding. This isn't over. It might never be over. There will always be someone trying to hurt his family. Always another threat lurking in the shadows. But for the first time since he can remember, Phoenix isn't alone in facing that threat. His parents are here, damaged but fighting for him. The pack is here, willing to protect what matters even when it costs them everything. It's not safety, he's learned that safety is an illusion adults tell themselves to sleep at night. But it's something better than safety. It's family. What happens to him? Phoenix asks, looking at Marcus. The adults exchange glances that carry years of pack law and supernatural justice. In the human world, Marcus would face trial and imprisonment. In their world, the penalty for betraying the pack is usually death. That's not your decision to make, Darius says gently. I know. Phoenix looks at Marcus one more time, memorizing the face of the man who'd orchestrated years of his suffering. But I wanted to see him lose everything, just like he made me lose everything. Marcus's expression twists with rage. You haven't won anything, boy. You're still just a bastard Omega's son with no real power, no real place in this world. You'll always be looking over your shoulder, always waiting for the next threat. Phoenix considers this assessment with the serious attention he gives to all potentially useful information. Maybe, he agrees. But I won't be looking alone. He takes his parents' hands, small fingers interlacing with larger ones that have the strength to protect him and the love to try. Around them, pack members begin the process of securing the compound and treating the wounded. The cost has been high, friends dead, trust shattered, secrets exposed that will take years to contain. But they're still here, still fighting, still family despite everything that's tried to tear them apart. Phoenix looks back at Marcus one last time, at the man who'd wanted to destroy their family and nearly succeeded. "Thanks," he says quietly. Marcus stares at him. "For what?" "For bringing us together. You tried so hard to break us apart that you pushed us back together instead." It's not forgiveness. Phoenix doesn't have that in him yet, may never have it. But it's acknowledgement that sometimes the worst things that happen to you lead to the best things that follow. As they walk back toward the main compound, Phoenix between his feet errants like the bridge he was always meant to be, he doesn't feel healed or whole or magically transformed by love. He still jumps at sudden noises. Still scans rooms for exits and weapons and threats. Still expects adults to lie and betray and abandon him when things get difficult. But for the first time in his 7 years of life, he doesn't expect to face those dangers alone. And maybe, eventually, that will be enough to build something like trust. Behind them, Marcus is led away by pack guards toward a justice that Phoenix doesn't want to think about too hard. The destroyed briefcase remains on the training ground, testament to a 7-year-old's understanding that sometimes the only way to win is to make sure everyone loses equally. The compound will be rebuilt. New security measures will be implemented. The hunt for other spies and traitors will begin tomorrow. But tonight, a broken family walks home together under stars that don't care about politics or power or the price of protecting the people you love. Phoenix is still just a traumatized kid with ordinary werewolf genetics and too much knowledge about the darker side of human nature. And that's exactly what makes him strong enough to survive in a world where strength is the only currency that matters. The end. Thank you for listening to this story. Like, share and subscribe for more.